This is the voice of the New York Football Giants, Bob Papa, and you are listening to the best throughout Europe, the Big Blue UK and Ireland podcast.
Welcome back, Giants fans, to the latest edition of the Big Blue UK and Ireland podcast. As always, we are proudly in association with Annie's Man Club. Lads, remember, it is okay to talk. And tonight we are 100% British. And as always, we are still 100% Giants. And it's Friday evening with a trip to the Motor City coming up on Sunday. What better time to get on the beers, or in Craig's case, the rum, than right about now. Joining me are Craig and Aaron as we look ahead to Mike Kafka's second game in charge as interim head coach, and our third game in a row against the NFC North opponent, which is quite interesting. Boys, how we doing? Happy Friday.
Happy Friday indeed. Yeah, nice to be back on after missing Tuesday's episode. Interesting to kind of get into what's coming up in the terms of this weekend. Tough game, I think, is to be expected, but when don't we make it tough for ourselves, I guess?
Yeah. You know, I think I'm not sure who's the clever ones, the ones of us that are still watching, waiting for that fourth quarter collapse, like we're the Australian batting lineup this morning. Yeah, it's dome. I was like, oh, let's look for Jackson Dart playing in a dome, but maybe we won't be seeing him this week.
Spoiler alert. Yeah, it's going to be a tough game Sunday. Obviously, Detroit on the road, in the dome, them coming off a loss to the Eagles last week. It's a get right game for them, maybe. We'll go into it shortly, but yeah, looking forward to this evening. Should be a good one. And yes, Steve, it is the Guinness. Enjoy. Have one of yourself, mate. If you are watching live, like so many people are already, on YouTube, X, or Facebook, get involved in the comments. Send us your questions. Give us your predictions as well. We'll be calling the game at the end of the show. And don't forget to like the episode. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done already. And Aaron, how many beers have you had so far tonight? Oh, no, sorry. How many stars should they leave us? You've had 5 already as well. Impressive. 5-star review on your podcast platform of choice for you audio listeners. That would be wonderful if you could do that. As usual, we are starting off with the latest news, handing over to Craig for the latest updates. So what we got?
Yeah, bit quiet really on the news front. I think that's both a blessing and a curse. I think there was probably some news that we were all hoping for that still hasn't come, and some people are now saying that it's not going to happen this season. We'll wait and see. I do think that there are still tweaks being made behind the scenes, and we could see something there. But the only kind of notable news outside of Cam Scatterboo's appearance on WWE Monday Night Raw, which I'm going to ask a question about in a bit, is that Jackson Dart is in the concussion protocol and will miss this weekend's game against the Lions, according to Mike Kafka, who revealed that in his press conference earlier on today. The Giants have been hopeful that Dart would return, and he has been on the field doing little drills with sort of as he works his way through the protocol. But he apparently repeated steps in the protocol on Wednesday and Thursday and hasn't progressed enough to actually clear. I think he was asked by Dan Duggan during the presser whether this was kind of a cautious thing and whether the Giants were keeping Jackson out because of the concussion. And Kafka was pretty adamant that he said, no, this is a protocol thing. We rely on the doctors. We respect the protocol, unlike a certain previous head coach. They're just going to follow the advice of that. So we will be without Jackson. There have been some other players that have been confirmed as out for Sunday as well. Cornerback Paulson Adebo will miss his 5th straight game with a knee injury that he aggravated during pre-game warm-ups last week against the Bears. Edge, Kayvon Thibodeau, he's out with a shoulder issue, and rookie Thomas Fedone has a foot injury. And in fact, Pat Leonard tweeted out a little bit after the news was announced that he saw Fedone today in a boot and on crutches. So it seems that foot issue is relatively serious and probably means that we may not see him again till later in the season, if at all this season. 3 players are questionable. Deontay Banks has a hip injury. Eric Gray, that blast from the past, has a knee issue, or is coming back from a knee issue, should we say. And Tyler Nubin has a stinger in his neck. Dan Duggan stated that he expects Gray to be active on Sunday as running back 3, so that'd be the first we see him this season. Banks apparently didn't practice today, so that would potentially trend towards him being out. And he said Tyler Nubin had a stinger, so you don't really know what's going to happen there. He said that sometimes stingers you can come back and you're fine. Sometimes on the day it just aggravates itself and it rules you out. So Tyler Nubin's probably a game time decision. Interesting to note that the report did not include Darius Slayton, so I expect Slayton and Wandale to be the starters with either Hire or Hodgins at wide receiver 3. I think we all know who we would prefer there. Tony is watching on Facebook, and Tony has read my mind because I was going to say, can we just discuss Scat's WWE appearance and why the New York media are being ridiculous? I thought it was great to see the young man enjoying himself. Man alive, if a man can't snap his ankle in half and just have a good time sometimes, whether that be on Twitch or talking about dominating tacos or whether he's at the WWE. I watched the clip. Yeah, he gets into it. Shout out as well. I cannot remember the wrestler's name, but shout out to the wrestler who said, "Is your defense going to do anything yet?" Which I thought was grade A trash talk. Grade A.
Top class banter in it.
It is, but Scat pushed it back, and there was a little bit of a scuffle there with Carter, and I think Flanagan Fowles was there as well with them. And it was much for me. It was much ado about nothing. Kafka knew he was there. He's already confirmed that. Scat knows what his ankle's like. He knows what he can and can't do. Yes, he's a little bit mental, but that's why we love him. And at the end of the day, no harm, no foul. We haven't had anything happen. At the end, it's the poor kid. I was saying this to Aaron before we started. All the kid knows is how to play football, and that's all he's done. He's come in and he's played well above his draft grade. I think he's probably been one of the better running backs in the terms of the rookie class this year. He was on pace to have an absolutely outstanding season. All-round play was great, and it's been taken away from him, and he's just trying to find a way to kill the time because he's probably going stir crazy. So, Aaron,
he's probably running into the walls head first.
Yeah, exactly. So, Aaron, I thought I'd come to you first with this, and just obviously, what do you think about the whole backlash that he's getting from the media over this?
Well, I think you started this whole pod with there's not a lot of news at the moment, right?
Yeah.
And with the Giants not being good on the field, they've kind of killed all talk around GMs and coaches and all this kind of thing. So, yeah, I think this is the media trying to find things to talk about. I don't think fans genuinely think that this is a problem. I'd have more of a problem if Dart was there while he's in the concussion protocol.
Yeah.
Not Scatterboo, who's on IR, he's had surgery, his foot's in a boot, in a cast, he can't move. Like, he'd probably win the Rumble one-legged with one arm behind his back. I imagine his finisher would be the old Chris Benoit diving headbutt off the top rope. And I don't see any way that that Cam Scatterboo. He's 22. What do you expect a 22-year-old kid to do? Like he's the king of New York. Like the biggest media market in the world. He's on Good Morning Football twice in 4 weeks for winning the Angry Run, right? And then he gets injured and it's all taken away from him. Like, he'd be the biggest star in New York this Christmas. I'm sure he'd have got Saturday Night Live and all of these kind of things coming his way in the thing. But yeah, I think, you know, I hope he turns up on SmackDown tonight on Friday and does it again or whatever, because and has him in the ring, because let people talk about it. It means nothing. Like, let the kid have fun.
Dan, any thoughts on it's classic New York media, isn't it? Just poking the obvious, poking the bear, just to try and get a reaction.
Of course it is. It's not like he's going to re-break his ankle. Like you said, it's in a cast and it can't move. But let him enjoy himself, man. Come on. I mean, imagine like if he was sat courtside at a Knicks game and one of the players lands on top of his ankle and re-breaks it. What are the chances of that happening? Virtually zero, right? But it could happen. You never know. He's got, you know, there's no barrier between the players in the court at a Knicks game, but yet there's those big ass barriers between him and the wrestlers at Monday Night Raw. At the end of the day, like you said, he's going to no doubt be bored. He wants to, you know, Monday Night Raw's at Madison Square Garden. He's going to go to it. And, you know, just like I said, just let him have fun. And I think, yeah, as usual, the media blow things out of proportion. Social media, you know, stirs up a storm, and you know, it's just frustrating. You know, if he'd broke his arm, would it be any different than if he's broken his ankle? Or if he was, you know, torn his ACL or another injury that wasn't so horrific, would it be any different? You know, obviously with, you know, like you said, Aaron, you don't expect Dart with a concussion to be there, and you know, then that would turn a few heads. But just let him enjoy it, and I just think just stop giving him so much of a hard time. You know.
Indeed,
it was quality though, I must admit. And now with the Scatterboo merchandise as well, the WWE merchandise. They're going to sell like hotcakes this Christmas, and I want one. I want one, because why would you not? Why would you not? Yeah, I mean, thanks for the comment, Tony. I mean, like Craig said, he was going to come on to it in a minute, and like you said, you read his mind. So it's just it's nice to see our players being able to enjoy themselves for once. And you know, with him having the time off because of an injury, why not? It's a good time to enjoy yourself. Should we move on to the game? Let's move on to the game. The Lions so far then, for 11 weeks, the best way to describe them is probably inconsistent, which is unusual for the Lions of late, because the Lions have been one of the top tier teams recently in recent seasons. They opened the season with a loss to the Packers, which I think surprised a lot of people. But then they reeled off 4 straight wins against the Bears, Ravens, Browns, and Bengals, scoring 161 points and only conceding 85. So they put points on the board for fun across those 4 games. Since then, it's been a loss against the Chiefs, a win against the Bucks. They had the bye week. They lost to the Eagles. They won against the Commanders, and then lost against the Eagles last week. And it's just been a bit up and down since the bye week, really. Well, just before the bye week, shall I say. And I think the biggest issue they had against the Eagles that they took the running game away, and the pressure got to Jared Goff. And why take the run game away from probably the best tandem of running backs in the league in Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery? I think that's a little bit criminal to do that. I mean, if you're going to put trust in 2 players to run the ball, it's probably those 2. And then obviously the pressure getting to Jared Goff led to sort of a lack of connection as such between him and Amon-Ra St. Brown, and that led to mistakes. But chances are ain't going to happen again. The Lions are 5th in total yards per game with just under 367 yards per game. and fourth in points per game with 29.2 as well. So they're still scoring points for fun, apart from that game against the Eagles, and they are outgaining most teams in terms of total yardage. Defensively, they've been strong. Aiden Hutchinson is sort of been making a push for Defensive Player of the Year lately, and they're getting some of their injured players back too. 292 yards a game, just shy of, against them is fifth best in the league, and they've got a turnover differential +5 with 12 takeaways on the season. So overall, Detroit have been, statistically for that, it's looking pretty good. They've just got a few more losses in that column than I think most people would have thought at this point in the season. Now, Dan Campbell's known for being a bit of a risk taker. That was evident last week where they went for it 5 times on fourth down. In fact, the Giants and Lions are both in the top 3 for fourth down attempts. Obviously, Mike Kafka's playing calling last week. Are we going to see 2 teams determined to keep their offenses on the field this week, Aaron?
I think it's interesting because it's in a dome rather than the weather, right? So we'll get to see how much of the play calling this week was a product of last week's was a product of the weather. So obviously, high winds, you want to run the ball a bit more because it takes the wind out of that kind of variable, and you don't, kicking longer kicks. Long punts can go awry, this kind of thing. So I understand the kind of the reason to run the ball a bit more last week. We'll see if that carries over this week inside the dome. Obviously, the elements are eliminated. We know the Lions are a run-first team, and when they've been able to, I think their wins are like. Their run game is way better than in their losses. I think their losses are like 70 yards a game and their wins are like 120 yards a game or something. There's quite a big disparity between how they run the ball. Jared Goff also plays a lot better in a dome than he doesn't. So good news for Lion fans is that they play the rest of their games in a dome this season until the playoffs, should they make it, which I would probably say they are in line to get there. We'll get to see a bit more of how Kafka wants to call a game where there's no weather bias. I do expect more runs in a Dable game, but yeah, it will be interesting to see how that shakes out and what's the thing. We know Dan Campbell's going to go for it on fourth down. Most of the league are caught up to that kind of efficiency of going it on fourth down, so I would expect us to go for it in reasonable situations as we approach midfield and things like that. But yeah, it's and the other thing that I wanted to kind of talk about on offense and as well is obviously we're without Dart. I was really hoping to see Dart in this environment in the dome, but the Lions defense play 3 linebackers way more than league average, and that's kind of and their defense has played better the last 5 weeks and then the whole of the season stats as well. And one of the reasons is they don't play nickel as often as the league does. So be interested. In theory, that makes it harder to run because there's an extra linebacker in the box, and then it's kind of asking teams to take them on. And they've been quite good in their secondary, even though they've had injuries and this, that, and the other. They've got injuries to the line. Their sort of second and third string defensive ends are out. Still, Aiden Hutchinson is a great player. It'll be really interesting to see how that takes effect on Jameis Winston, who's less mobile than Dart. We see how our offensive line does against it. Their offensive line is maybe not 100% as well. And when we came up against the Chargers against the non-100% offensive line, we really feasted in that game as a D line, as a unit, and everything else. So it'd be really interesting to see if there is something there in that space. But I do expect the Lions to run the ball and not throw the ball against our defense, who I think we're 30th against the run, but actually in yards per carry we're 32nd because of game script. We have been ahead of teams. It hasn't been it wasn't like last season where we would get behind and we would have to throw the ball. The other team could just run the ball and eat out the clock. We have had leads. We have been within one score consistently throughout the game. So teams can't go into that run-only mode. Yet, yards per carry, we've been terrible. So we know the Lions want to run the ball. We know that's our biggest weakness. It's going to be really interesting to see if our offense can keep the game close rather than can our defense get stop and help our offense win the game. I think it's the other way. We don't necessarily expect our defense to get a stop. Can our offense, with a backup QB, the injuries that we've got everywhere else, can our offense sustain enough against what is an improving defense that's trying to round into form for the playoff season?
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. The one thing that I will kind of back up on is what you were saying around the fact that their offensive line is beat up. Obviously, we don't have Kayvon Thibodeau, which I think is actually a little bit of a loss there, because as though his stat line doesn't jump out, he has been quite productive. And I think that when you can get him, Carter, Dex, and Burns out there, though we maybe aren't reaping the rewards, they do still cause chaos. Brian Burns obviously is just going to do what he does. We need to see a big game from Carter here, especially if he is going up against a backup. And Dex. I think that's going to be the key. The Eagles' game plan last week was clear, was make Jared Goff pass and disrupt him. And if we do the same, happy days. The problem is our rush defense, as Aaron rightly said, is not what the Eagles' rush defense is. And that is going to be a big area of contention. I think offensively, we should be okay. One thing that I did like a lot with Kafka's game plan last week was the concerted effort to try and establish a run game. Yes, it will be difficult against three linebackers when they're going to line up in that formation, but we still need to get it going, because the problem is as much as we love the Jameis Winston experience, he should have been picked off 5 times last week. And if we can't get a run game established and we're going to have Jameis dropping back every 2 seconds, we are going to get to 30 levels of interceptions. Like they are a turnover team, and they do have more takeaways than giveaways this year. They are one of the top in that. So we just need to be careful with what's going on there. Going back to your actual question there, Dan, about the risk taking between the two of them, I kind of like it. The only thing that I would say is that if we are in a dome, let's give Koo some opportunities to kick some field goals, and let's see what his legs like. We're not making a push for the playoffs now. So if we end up missing a 50-odd yarder, at least we've given him an opportunity to show whether he can or can't do it. Because if he can't do it in a dome, he sure as hell isn't going to be able to do it at MetLife when the wind's whipping. And that's what we need to try and establish now before we then look at next season and whether we're going to be getting a new kicker, which I would assume we are, with the fact that Graham is probably going to be cut. Jude might stick around on the practice squad, but I cannot see them trusting him enough to be able to go back out there again, especially after what they've done this year to him, unless he takes a massive step forward in his development over the summer. And if Koo can't make it, then we've got Ben Sauls to fall back on. But we need to do something with this kicking game, and we need to try and figure out, is Koo the player that we can have going forward? Or is he just another one of these stopgap kickers until we find our kicker of the future, because we've been quite lucky with Graham to an extent, because we have had him for a number of years, and we do tend to go through kickers, maybe not ones that stay for like 8 to 10 years, like some teams are able to do and get a kicker who's consistent, but we do tend to have these sort of like 4 to 6 year stop gaps. And it would just be nice to be able to figure out what we've got and whether Koo can do that.
Yeah, man. And I think, like I said a few weeks ago, it would be nice to be able to have a kicker that can regularly hit him from sort of 55 plus. Because in this day and age in this game, like like I said, we saw the all-time record beaten a couple of weeks ago. It was a 68-yarder. That was good. I mean, we've got kickers that can do it from 70 plus. We've got kickers that can do it from 60 plus. At the moment, our kicker is at best sort of like debatable from 50 plus. So we need to we need to see him in the dome and see what his ability actually is.
When was the last? Can you genuinely remember the last time the Giants attempted a 50-plus yard field goal? Have we attempted one this season?
I think a few.
I just genuinely can't remember. I'll try and have a very quick look on PFF.
Have a look.
It will do. But you know what I mean? Like, that should be something where you can just instantly say, yeah, of course we have. Of course we have. But I genuinely wouldn't be able to.
Yeah, because sometimes in the game, like I know, like it's always good to go for it on fourth, and if it's sort of like 4th and 1, 4th and 2, and it's it's manageable. When it gets to sort of like 4th and 3, 4th and 4, and you're thinking, let's just kick the points, and get some points on the board. Sometimes points on the board are better than go on.
All right, so we have attempted a grand total between the 4 players that have attempted a field goal this year, being Graham Gano, Young Hoku, Jude McTominay, and Jamie Gillan. We have attempted 14 field goals. 3 of those from 40 plus and 2 hits, 1 from the 40 plus and 1 from 50 plus. So we're not even attempting that many 40 plus field goals, let alone 50s.
That's bad. For a decent kicker in the game, in the league at this day and age, 40 plus is virtually a sort of a guarantee. It's only every now and again that you might shank one or pull it right or left or whatever. 40 plus is embarrassing. So to not have that option of being able to kick from 45, it says a lot, really. And maybe that's why we do go for it on 4th down a lot, is because we don't have that kicker there.
For example, Joey Sly by himself, which is Tennessee's kicker, has attempted 18 from 40 plus, and we've attempted 3.
And Tennessee have the worst record in the league. But besides the point, it's a case of they've attempted them because they know they have the kicker, right? Well, maybe we need to look. Maybe we need to look a bit closer at our kicking situation and not ignore it so much.
Yeah, Chris Boswell for the Steelers has attempted 17.
Yeah, it's not a great look, is it? It's not a great look. But the thing is, for me, with this Lions team this week, I'm just, like I said, those 2, Gibbs and Montgomery, for me, just put the fear of death into me. They're averaging over 130 rush yards a game. I'll be very, very surprised if we keep them to less than 200 in this game. In total, I think Gibbs has got almost 800 on the season. Montgomery's got about 500 on the season. Between them, rushing touchdowns, let me find it. Between them, they've got 13 rushing touchdowns. They're averaging 4.6 yards a carry. What more can you say about that than, oh, fuck. Oh, shit, we're up against it this weekend. And then on the other side of things, you've then got Amon-Ra St. Brown, one of the best receivers in the league. You've also got what's his name? Jameis Williams. Again, one of the best number 2 receivers in the league. And I think probably one of the biggest misses, one of the biggest losses for them was probably Sam Laporta this season. We were talking about him before we went on air because he's in my fantasy team. He's now on IR. and I think he could be quite a big miss for him, because he's that sort of like he's that safety blanket, and he scores touchdowns as well. He's got 3 touchdowns on the season across 9 games. So he does pulls his weight as well. What are you gonna say, Aaron?
Yeah, just Jameis Williams. We haven't discussed it, but essentially, obviously, the Lions lost their offensive coordinator in Ben Johnson before the season to the Bears, and their new offensive coordinator lost play calling duties. Dan Campbell took it over, and one of the big changes between the Dan Campbell play calling and the previous OC was the average depth of target that Jameis Williams was seeing. So last season, Jameis Williams, when he started, he was this down the threat, deep ball guy. And he's kind of become more of like an OBJ type threat with catching some slants and making some things happen afterwards. So this really long 16-yard ADOT was 11.6, which is like bang average for like leading receivers in the league. That then changed back at the start of this season. He was back up at 16. Since Dan Campbell's taken over, he's at 11.6. So he's the sort of guy that is going to challenge that middle of the field, catch it on a slant and try and make runs after the catch. He's not just this big downfield target that maybe the impression of people have for him. And obviously, Amon-Ra St. Brown occasionally runs in the slot as well.
Would it be nice if maybe we could do something like that with Jalen Hyatt, where we see what he's got after the catch? If he can run his route.
If he can run his route properly, yeah, and not give up on it. That'd be very nice. And also, you got to look at the quarterback and Jared Goff. I think he's come on leaps and bounds since he moved to Detroit. He's always been sort of in that MVP bracket, especially since Dan Campbell came in as well. How nice would it be to have a head coach like Dan Campbell as well? By the way, he's absolutely transformed this organization. They went from the 0-16 year, was it not even 10 years ago, to now being one of the NFC's best teams. And a lot of that is thanks to Dan Campbell, right?
I was wondering if Aaron was going to say what I was going to say, in that just bear in mind that Dan Campbell also almost got run out of town very early in his career at the Lions. And it does take a few years for someone like that to turn it round, for every sort of Ben Johnson like there is at the Bears, and how well the Bears are doing now, there is always the Dan Campbells where they may struggle for that first year or two. That's probably what we would have preferred to happen with Brian Daboll, is those first 2 years be crap, and then we start turning it round, as opposed to what actually happened.
Yeah, maybe the writing was on the wall after that first season with Dave's in charge. I don't think we were ever going to replicate that. But yeah, going back to Jared Goff, 21 touchdowns to only 4 interceptions so far this season. That's impressive quarterback play. And yeah, he came under pressure against the Eagles. It's the Eagles, let's face it. It's the reigning Super Bowl champions. So you're going to come under pressure against it. Us, however, we've our defensive front without Tibbs is going to look a little bit different. But I still expect us to get pressure on Goff, especially with this their offensive line being a little bit battered. And Brian Burns, I mean, he's on pace for a 20+ sack season. And I think that I can't remember how many players it was, but I saw it earlier. It's only ever been done
twice.
I want to say sort of between 10 to 15 times across the entire league that a player's got 20 or more sacks in a season, and across the league history.
He'd be the third Giant, I think I read.
Yeah. And it doesn't happen very often. I can't remember the exact amount of times. I'm sure it's around 10, between 10 and 15. That it's happened in the entire history. Well, since sacks have been recorded as a stat anyway. But looking at the defense of the Lions, they've got 31 sacks so far in the season. Aiden Hutchinson is a
machine.
I think he's probably one of these. He's probably one of these players that's come back from a serious injury, stronger and better than ever. And he just looks like he's tearing it apart. It's going to be really, really difficult against the Lions this weekend. I've got no doubt about that. I think we're up against it. We've lost, I want to say 3 in a row at Ford Field. And I'd be very, very, very surprised if it isn't 4 in a row this weekend. I think that all around, they're just the better team. They're 6-4, I want to say. Could quite easily be sort of 7-3, 8-2 at this point, and really sort of like nailed on for a postseason spot. They've still got a little bit of work to do, but I can't see them not being there in the mix come the end of the regular season. But talking of losing games at Ford Field in a row, the last time the Giants did win at Ford Field was in week 16 of 2013. So you've got to go back 12 years the last time we won in Detroit in a 23-20 overtime win. My question for you boys is, who were the leading receiver and running back for the Giants that day?
I'll let you take the first pop, Aaron, because I'll just start throwing names out there. That's I just go for the scattergun approach.
Yeah. Who was the Hakeem Nicks?
He was one of the receivers that day. He wasn't the leading receiver though. Let me find his stat line. Bear with 2 seconds.
Do I just go for my trusted favourite in Ruben Randall?
You love a bit of Ruben Randall, don't you?
I love him. I do. He was like
him
and Cruz were like my guys when I first started following the Giants. So
Ruben Randall was also a receiver in that game, but wasn't the leading receiver. So Nicks had 4 catches for 52 yards on 7 targets. Ruben Randall had 4 catches for 40 yards on 9 targets.
Obviously, people in the comments feel free to get involved in this.
Yeah. The leading receiver in the last time the Giants won at Ford Field.
Wide receiver.
2013. Wide receiver, yeah.
So is it the Salsa man?
It's not Cruz, no. I think I want to say Cruz was injured in that game because he didn't have a catch.
Christ, so we're getting.
You'll recognise the name, Aaron.
Oh, if you've said Aaron,
you might recognise the name as well, Craig. I'm sure you probably will, to be honest. Jarrell Jernigan.
Jernigan, yeah.
6 catches for 80 yards and a touchdown.
So the running back, Jennings.
Nope.
I think it was before Jennings, wasn't it? I think it's still like back end of the Earth, Wind, Fire crew, but so I don't know. Was it like Ward or someone?
So no. So our Brandon Jacobs was on the roster, but he didn't play in this game.
No, this is the season before I went and saw us in Atlanta where we collapsed. So, but that season we had literally nobody's playing for us. It was like Thanksgiving week, so it was like this sort of stage of the season. We had nobody's playing in that game. We had Eli and a bunch of nobodies. I don't know if it was this season as well. This is the season before, but yeah, not sure. If it's not any of the Twin Fire crew.
No, so Jacobs was the only one of the 3 left on the roster.
No idea.
No. So the running back that started off the season was David Wilson.
Backflip King.
But he had a lot of injuries that year, and it was no surprise. We also had Madden cover man Peyton Hillis on the roster this year.
Yeah.
But the leading rusher in this game was Andre Brown. 16 carries for 40 yards. Andre Brown had previously played for Washington, Denver, and Indianapolis before coming to the Giants. This was his last season at the Giants in 2013, and then he disappeared off the face of the earth. 16 carries for 40 yards. There we go. Little bonus point for you then. Which defensive back scored a 38-yard pick six to tie the game in the fourth quarter?
Control roll?
Wasn't Antrell Roll. He was on the roster though, Antrell Roll.
the other guy I remember scoring one. What was his name? Will Hill.
Will Hill. There we go. Yeah, we drafted him in 2012 out of Florida, and he had a 38-yard pick six to tie the game. There's a bonus point for you as well. Which Giants defensive lineman had our only 2 sacks of the game?
So this was sort of after Tuck.
JPP?
Right.
It wasn't JPP. That's a good guess.
So Kiwanuka?
Bosh, Matthias Kiwanuka. There we go. He's your man.
Aaron's got the inside knowledge, whereas I'm just launching darts at like random places and hoping
Yeah, it
something
could
will
be them.
stick.
Could be them. Yeah. Matthias Kiwanuka had 2 sacks in the game.
Nice.
And there we go. All right then. To round up this week, with the bye week coming up, following Monday Night Football next week against the Patriots, we thought we'd sort of look ahead to who our pending free agents are and whether we can maybe expect them to be extended, have their contracts extended during the week off or not. Aaron, there's plenty of offensive linemen on the list, but who sticks out for you?
Yeah, so I feel like some of these guys will be coming back just because of the amount of guys on the list. Don't expect that much turnover. So Jermaine Illuminor is the headliner, obviously brought in to play right guard on sort of $7 million a year average contract, is easily playing at a level that's 10 million plus a year at the moment. And I think it will cost us that to keep him. So I would like to keep him. I don't think you want to. It takes a long time for these units to gel. I don't think you want to interrupt it. He's been a fun locker room guy from as a fan. I quite enjoy his takes. He's active on Twitter. He's always a good interview, I think, and I think he's been decent. He's been better in pass pro than he has in run blocking. I think he's given up 3 sacks and 12 pressures on the season. He's obviously, when Andrew Thomas is on the other side to you, but most teams are going to put their best pass rusher over you at some point because they Andrew Thomas has just played at a phenomenal level this season. I think he's one of the top tackles by PFF grade, by kind of the statistics. He's the sort of guy that you want to keep there. And so I would say, I'd like to bring him back on something like a 3-year, $40 million contract, kind of like a 13 million a year. It's high. It's not top of the market for a right tackle. I think that would be good money for a right tackle, and it keeps together. What we've then got is basically everybody in the middle, apart from Runyon, who's a cut candidate because of the amount of savings on his contract, but I think probably won't go anywhere because Greg Van Roten, Evan Neal, Austin Schlottman, Joshua Azudu, Aaron Stinney, all interior guys, so guards or centers, are all in the final year of their current deal. And that's a big turnover if you lose that many guys. So the one guy I think is probably nailed on that the Giants will want to keep him. I don't know if they'll be able to pay him enough, whether you'll want to test the open market, is Schlottman. So actually, he's our second highest graded offensive lineman this season. And in 110 snaps, he's not given up a single sack. So he's been really good in pass pro. could do with a bit of improvement in his run game. But from a guy that's come in as a backup, served well. He's done really well as a backup. You'd want to keep that and keep the pressure on John Michael Schmitz, who has got better over the last couple of weeks, and keep those two in the centre. But again, a pure centre. He's not a guy that's going to play in a guard. So, how much can you afford to pay this guy when he might be able to get starter money in the league somewhere from the tape that he's put on this season? And maybe if he does go and start somewhere, you get a decent 5th round, 6th round comp pick back for a guy like that. GVR, obviously, he's a starting right guard. He's aging. I don't think the performance has been there at times this season. But the reason why he's starting is there's another guy. Let's do a vote on this one. Hands up if you want to offer a contract to Evan Neal. For the listeners who are audio only, nobody has lifted their hand up.
Shock.
Yeah, I don't think you needed that me to add that in, but yeah. So the reason why GVR is starting is Evan Neal, who's a final opportunity. Let's move him over to guard. He's not even been active. And
now he's on IR now as well.
He's now on IR, right? So, but even before he was injured, which was apparently a weight room injury, there was no chance. So there's one that's going to be cut, Neil. So that means you've got Azudu and Stinney, who are both guards. Azudu's been kind of this flip-flop tackle guard, still young at the end of his rookie contract. I think there's a chance Azudu stays, but we'll have to fight for whoever comes in in training camp to make the roster again. I think he's a roster bubble guy. I don't think he's certain to remain on the roster at the end of training camp if you bring him back. But I don't think he's a guy that's going to need to test the market. There isn't going to be a big market for a guy like that. Same with Stinney. Again, I think Stinney's maybe played 2 snaps this season. These are sort of, maybe we'll see some of this talent as the season goes on. At a certain point, they're going to have to evaluate some of these guys to make Joe Shane or any other GM that may be incoming job easier on, well, what am I doing with this room? Because you can't let that many guys walk out the door. It's too disruptive particularly for the offensive line position. I think maybe at wide receiver you wouldn't mind changing your room over if the guys aren't doing it. Change the room around quite significantly. But I think offensive lines are kind of a thing that you have to build up a bit of a bond. Almost like when you finish each other's sentences, you kind of need to be like that with offensive line, but with blocks. So you need to know what the guy next to you is doing and be able to go, right, I'm confident. I know this guy always does this, so I can play with that. And I don't have to worry about what he's going to do because I know.
Isn't that kind of exactly what Jermaine Illuminor was saying last year, in the fact that some of the play was poor because of the fact that he was worrying about other people more than he was worrying about himself?
Yeah. There's nothing worse. Like I've experienced it where a guy's come in at tackle and he doesn't know the play, right? And I'm like, I need you to block this guy. But if you don't block this guy, he's going to fuck the play up. But if I don't block, and then if I don't get to the block that I need to get to, we go from maybe a 2-yard run. There's a difference between a 2-yard run and a 10-yard run. But if that guy gets through, it's a negative play. And I don't think you're going to block this guy. So and we get a 2-yard run because I had to block the guy that I didn't trust the other guy next to me. And it just slows you down. It makes you hesitant. And we've seen, when you're not hesitant on the O-line and the kind of the triple team on Dexter Lawrence last week. You watched how quickly the right guard fires out onto. He's probably a false start, but he is so quick because he knows what he's doing. He knows his assignment, and he knows he's got to get across that gap to seal Dexter Lawrence. That he's confident that the guy going the other way is going to get the 3 tech, and he's not worried about it. If he was hesitant at all, he doesn't make that block, and he doesn't get across that quickly. And Dexter Lawrence might be able to split the double team and all that kind of thing. So, yeah, really, really important that you have that relationship between. Like I say, it's like being able to finish each other's sentences, but with blocks.
Nice. So we're re-signing Illuminor. We're re-signing
Schlotman, hopefully.
Nice.
And probably Azudu.
Has Azudu even been on the field at all this season? I don't think he has he?
I'll get back to you on that one.
I don't remember seeing him on the field at all. I know he missed the first 4 games with injury, but I don't remember seeing him on the field at all this season.
Yeah, I don't think he has. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, like I said, Stinney's only been on twice. So basically, John Runyon and Greg Van Roten have basically played 750 snaps on offense, which is like every single snap.
Brilliant
season.
I mean, if it ain't broken, don't fix it, So
yeah,
it's working. There's no need for it. But I mean, I think Azudu as a extreme depth piece is okay. But there may be better talent out there in later in the draft, maybe even undrafted rookies, So, and he's shown his youth and naivety in previous seasons. So I think there's a lot of development that he still needs. But is it worth keeping him around for a year just to sort of see how far his development can go, especially if GVR is maybe not on the roster?
Yeah, and GVR, PFF grades will take for what it's worth on offensive linemen. He's in the 60s, which is average starter. If that's your worst offensive lineman, you haven't got a problem. John Runyon's down in the low 50s. So based on PFF grade, Greg Van Roten's outplayed John Runyon this season, and John Runyon's the big money guard. It's not on. Yeah. Not on top of the market money, but he's on a fair whack for he's a second highest lineman, O-lineman for us.
Yeah, nice. All right, sweet. Thanks for that. Looking at defensive players for me, then I think there's a few on the list. The one that stands out, I think, is the biggest standout. It's Cordell Flott. He's still obviously in the final year of his rookie contract. Currently on 1.3 million APY. With not even $1 million guaranteed. I expect that will change very, very soon. The thing with Flott is he's solidified that CB2 position for himself behind Paulson Debo, way ahead of Tay Banks. He's only missed the 1 game this season, the 49ers game with the concussion, but he's been ever present apart from that. PFF have ranked him as currently have him ranked as 26th out of 108 qualifying cornerbacks with I believe it's like over 70 grading. Let me just find it. Yeah, average coverage grade of 72.7 and average defensive grade of just shy of 70, 69.7. He is our highest rated cornerback so far this season in terms of PFF grade as well. So realistically, I think there's only one option for him, and that's to extend his contract, re-sign him, and pay him some money. In rankings, he's currently ranking ahead of reigning defensive player of the year Pat Surtain, and free agents from last year such as Derek Stingley and JC Horn, who are in the top 3 in terms of highest paid cornerbacks in the league. Derek Stingley is the second highest paid. It's only Sauce that's ahead of him. And he'll only be 25 at the start of next season as well, so he is still really young. Now, I don't think he won't quite command the 18 million a year that Paulson Debo signed in the off season, but I think with his age, with him being relatively young, and him winning that CB2 spot ahead of Banks, I can honestly see him being offered an extension in the region of sort of 10 to 12 million a year over 3 or 4 years, sort of looking at sort of 45, between 40 and $45 million contract, around $20 million that guaranteed. And I think that would be enough to keep Flott around in that CB2 role. And he's made it his own this season. He's been our most consistent defensive back. And I think he's really earned that second contract. He was going into a contract year and he won that battle in camp, and he's just proven that he's worth keeping around. So I'd be very surprised if Flott's contract, if he's not offered a contract in the bye week, so we can tie him up and not even risk him going into free agency and going out and testing free agency. I'd be very surprised if we don't sign him up. Dane Belton, another one, obviously on his rookie contract, currently APY of 1.1 million. He's played in all 11 games so far this season. PFF have him ranked as 76th out of 93 qualifying safeties, so on the lower end. But he's just behind Tyler Nubin in 75th and Javon Holland in 67th. So, overall across the team, he's not performing too badly. And for someone that's used in rotation, sub packages, special teams as well, I think he's worth having around too. He had his best statistical year last year. He's fallen slightly off this year. So I think if he's offered an extension before his rookie deal expires, I think the sort of between the 4 to 5 million a year is reasonable, again, over 3 to 4 years, with maybe sort of 8 to 10 million in guaranteed money. I think it's probably a good number for him. Micah McFadden, the last one in his rookie contract, currently only earning $1 million a year on average, which for a linebacker 2 is kind of criminal. Only $350K in guaranteed money as well. But the big thing with McFadden is obviously he's missed this entire season with injury. And it also obviously was a gruesome injury in week 1. He has been seen, I believe, in and around the facility in the last few days.
Yeah. Pat Leonard, I think it was Pat Leonard, said that he had spoken to him, and he had a Lisfranc tear. So much like what happened to Andrew Thomas last year, but not quite. He did say it wasn't quite to the severity of what Thomas dealt with. So he could be back this season, but obviously time's running out.
Yeah, exactly. And also, with the season going south like it is it worth even risking it? Because he's missed plenty of time due to injury so far in his career. But he's shown when he's on the field, he's extremely valuable. And he's an extremely good linebacker beside Bobby O. And I think we've missed him massively this year. But I think the likelihood of adding linebacker depth during the draft and possibly free agency is pretty high. So I think if we do decide to extend this contract, it's going to be low cost. It's going to be team friendly. I don't know, maybe in the region of sort of, again, 5 to 6 mil a year over 2 to 3 years. Maybe have an out after 2 years, depending on his injuries. And because of those injuries as well, like looking at guaranteed money, maybe have it sort of structured carefully, have a lot of incentives in that contract, just so that if he's not on the field because of injury or whatever, then we're not risking paying him too much money. And then lastly, I think one player that we all were quite surprised that was actually on the roster still this year, Raheem Nunez-Roches, or Nacho. His 11th year in the league, his third contract, currently earning $4 million a year on average. $5.5 million of that is guaranteed. Since he joined the Giants in 2023, he statistically had 3 of his worst seasons, which says a lot, really. And there's younger, cheaper alternatives like Roy Robertson-Harris, Darius Alexander, just to name a couple that we've got on the roster. I'm finding it very, very difficult to see him being extended, considering, like I said, we all thought he'd be cut before the season started. And I think if he has anything left in his tank still, if he then has any glimmer of what he could potentially give us in the final, how many weeks talking? 6-7 weeks of the season. If he plays well for the rest of the season, maybe he'll get another 1-year contract. Maybe that'll be sort of 2 to 3 million with maybe $1 million guaranteed. But you ain't going to pay him much money, and it's going to be a prove it deal. And again, he's got a lot to do to get that second contract with the Giants, and I'd be very, very surprised if we see him on the roster next year.
Just before you move on, it's not a free agency decision, but there is a 5th-year option decision on one Tay Banks. Hands up if you're picking up the 5th-year option on Tay Banks. Once again, audio listeners, nobody has put their hand up.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Craig, offense, who have we got on pending free agents?
Yeah, I'm going to fire through these. I'm not going to go through any contract details. This is more for kind of awareness, I guess, and for just watching them for the rest of the season, I guess, was the reason that we decided to do this. But Wan'Dale Robinson is out of contract. He has the second most receiving yards with 2,089 and the most receptions with 233 since being drafted. He has 75 more receptions than Slayton being the only person who has more yards than him since 2022. So,
interesting.
He is the go-to. He is productive, but only has 7 career touchdowns. And as we saw earlier on this season, his size only has 7 career touchdowns. Honestly.
Wow.
Yeah. And as we saw earlier this year, one of those reasons is that he is a small person. So when you are looking at a contested catch, he's not the person you're going to go to. So size does kind of play a part in the argument against, I guess. He has been available a lot, considering he does take some big hits for his size. He tore his ACL, obviously, in his rookie season, but other than that, he's stayed pretty injury-free and was actually able to return for the beginning of the season the following year as well. So, and one last point on Wan'Dale, he's 24. He turns 25 on January 5th. He is young. I think we keep Wan'Dale around as a young option. I think as a slot receiver, he has proven his worth. He's also proven his worth with some pretty poor quarterbacks over the years. So I think with someone like Dart, he could kick on. Second player that I want to highlight is Bellinger. Came in the same draft class as Wan'Dale and hasn't really had the same production. 81 receptions for 850 yards and 3 touchdowns, but has kind of mostly been left out of favour since he suffered that eye injury in his rookie year. I think we were all quite high on him, and he really was sort of starting to kick on in his rookie year, and then that eye injury happened again. I want to say it was against the Jags. I might be wrong there. But yeah,
I believe it was.
But again, he turned 25 in September, so he's a youth option. I would quite happily sign him to be a backup tight end. I wouldn't have him as your main tight end, but I would be happy to sign him as a backup. I do think he offers a lot, but as long as the cost is right. Isaiah Hodgins, who is back with the team, obviously will be out of contract, but if there's one thing that he's shown by coming back into the fold, it's that we are shite at sorting out our wide receiver depth. And maybe we just keep him around as wide receiver depth. I don't think he's going to be a starter wide receiver, but keep him as depth. And if you do keep him as depth, use him more than you did last season, where you gave him 2 targets. Like, actually put him out on the field after what he did last week. He was our top receiver. He came in and did it straight away. He's also 6'3", and we do not use his size enough. We do not give him some of those bigger contested catches, because one thing that we have learned from watching Isaiah Hodgins is he does tend to be able to come down with the ball whenever he needs to do so. He made some really difficult catches last week and was really impressive. Yes, limited speed. Yes, limited separation, but a low-cost option as a backup. You can't turn it down when we've seen the depth we're putting out there. And lastly, Chris Manhertz. Yeah, Chris Manhertz, 2 years with the team, veteran presence, good in blocking situations, but he's only made 4 catches since signing with the team 2 years ago. He's also 33 years old. I think he stifles the development of other tight ends. I'd much rather try and produce something somewhere else and have somebody else get the hard snaps, essentially. So, I'm probably not going with Manhertz. I'd quite happily sign the other 3, though, but I do think Hodgins and Bellinger should look at backup roles.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, Bellinger has got a better blocking grade than Manhertz.
Yeah, so
and he's obviously used as a fullback as well, like that kind of flex position. So I think you can replace Manhurst's spot on the roster with Bellinger, and if you only use him as a blocking tight end, I think you're
still
just
getting
as
something.
good. But he has a genuine threat that if
Yeah.
he's on the field, he can be a receiver. And obviously, with the one position that we are really deep at, it seems this season, to the point of where the guy that we didn't take on the team is now starting tight end for the Dolphins.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's probably where you do make room. And I know he was a cut candidate before the season just because of the amount that he was on belly, but when he's been healthy, he's been a good Giant.
Yeah,
he's been productive. Yeah,
yep,
exactly that. All right, interesting. Yeah, it'd be good. It'd be interesting to see if we do make any contract moves during the bye week. I'd be surprised if we don't, especially those big names you want to tie up. And
Jermaine and Flott would be the two that I would expect that you'd want to get done before the end of the season. Like I say, Schlottman, that's the sort of one where you go, well, if he makes it through the first day of free agency, or the first week of free agency, then I think you've got a good chance of bringing him back. But I wouldn't want to let Flott and Jermaine test the market, to be perfectly honest.
No, exactly that. All right, then, prediction time for the game. Aaron, you're currently in last position with 3 out of 11. Say again?
I'm on a 2-game winning streak.
You're on a 2-game win streak, absolutely. Kev is just behind you with 4 predictions right out of 11. Obviously, he was the only one that didn't get it right last week. Craig, you're with 5. I'm with 8, and Shane is out in front with 9 because he's picked against the Giants every single week. And this week will probably be no different for Shane. So let's start off with Kev. What's Kev gone for?
Kev has gone for a 24-31 loss for the Giants.
Wow. Kev's picked against the Giants. He just wants some points in that column. He wants some points, doesn't he? Aaron?
Yeah, so again, I think the line moved from 10.5 to 12.5, right? So I think I gave you my pick before I knew Dart was out. But no excuses. I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to stand behind it. I've also picked Giants 24, Lions 31.
Wow, okay.
For pure clarity's sake, they all send me their picks separately, so we have no idea what each other has picked. So to get 2 bang on the money is pretty impressive.
Interesting, Craig.
I also have I've gone for a slightly wider margin of victory on this one. I've gone for Giants 20, Lions 40 on this.
40 burger. Interesting. I think even though the Lions have been inconsistent this year over the last few weeks, their offense is just far too good. Our defense will crumble. I was going to go higher, but I thought let's kind of keep it slightly respectable. I've gone for 38-20 Lions win.
And Shane is lone wolfing it. No, he's not. Of course he's not. Shane has gone.
Has Shane got the Lions putting up a 50 burger?
He has not. He has gone 17-34, which is quite conservative for Shane. Obviously, myself and Dan have both gone for the Lions to score more. So yeah, and to be fair, we're all a little bit more conservative than some of these predictions in the comments because
go on.
Steve's put Payne 38-17 to the Lions. Kieran has put 41-13 to the Lions because the tank train must stay on track. And Darren's gone 42-14, which is 42-14 is someone's getting fired.
That's 6 touchdowns to 2.
Please, Shane Bowen.
I mean, I think either mine or your scoreline is getting Shane Bowen fired, Craig.
Probably.
Maybe even Shane's. Kevin Aaron's, maybe not so much.
But I have us leading 24-0 with 5 minutes to go.
Oh, so yours is getting Shane Byrne fired as well. Beautiful. So another fourth quarter collapse. How fantastic. We look forward to it. Unfortunately, that is all we have time for tonight. The boys will be back on Monday night, I believe it is, at the usual time to review the game. So make sure you tune in then. But is there anything else to add before we go, guys?
No, just the main draw of watching the Giants, Jackson Dart, is obviously not available for this one, so it's not probably not going to be the most watched from a Giants perspective, but we continue to follow. We just want to see some improvements, and we just want to see a bit more of anything.
Just anything at this point.
Yeah, it's not quite as novel to watch Jameis Winston the second week in a row. It was quite novel last week. Not quite as excited to see Jameis Winston finally pull on the Giants jersey and see what he can do, because I think we know what we get with Jameis Winston. I think he's a really good backup. I think he will play his heart out. He will chuck it into triple coverage, and he may or may not get picked off in multiple times.
Multiple times.
Yeah.
Just before we go, should we make a little prediction on the touchdown to interception ratio?
Oh, go on then.
I'll go 2-2. Two
Okay,
touchdowns.
Aaron?
2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions.
So I will go 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions.
Interesting. I'm going 1 touchdown, 4 interceptions.
4. The Sam Darnold week.
Absolutely. Go on, Jameis. Throw it up there. Give us a bit of excitement. No, you know what? Obviously it's not the it won't be quite the same without Jackson Dart on the field, but it's going to be entertaining nonetheless. Maybe not so much for us as Giants fans, maybe more so for Lions fans. But you never know. Stranger things have happened. But the likelihood is the Giants end week 12 at 2-10 and going into next week, Monday Night Football, against the Patriots, who are currently the AFC's number 1 team. Am I correct? And so it's between them and the Broncos, isn't it? In the AFC.
They're 9-2. They were the first team to hit 9 wins.
We can't wait. It's going to be so good. Hey ho, bring on Sunday. If anything, we can see the Lions offense roll through us and put up some points on the board. Thanks for getting involved in the comments to everyone that's been watching. We appreciate all the love as usual. Check out our socials for the latest news. Follow the links in the description to find out where we are. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell to be notified on when we're going live. My thanks as ever go to Craig and to Aaron for joining me. We're signing off until next time. Let's go Giants.